Hello, fellow writers. My name is Laura, and welcome back to Learn to Writer, the channel where we talk about the mental challenges of being a writer. If you haven't been here before, I'm so happy to see you. I'm glad that you could join us today. And if you have been here before, may the words be ever in your favor. Stories live and die by their characters. An interesting plot is great, and I am always down for a shiny magic system. But without interesting characters in there to do those things in this world and in this plot, then all of it doesn't mean anything. All of the books that I have put away as DNF basically have all been that I don't care about the characters, I don't like the characters, so I'm not going to complete the story because I don't care about what happens to them. And so it is important, in my opinion, to have very good and strong characters in your book. Creating characters and having characters come alive in my stories is basically one of my favorite things about being an author. There's nothing I like better than when a character that I've created in my head is just a manifestation of my consciousness and my creativity basically becomes their own person. They manifest themselves into something that is there and consistent, and that is just the best feeling in the world. But one of the things that I have to remember that as an author, some things that seem easy to me are things that other people don't understand, they don't know how to do, they just have never experienced. And because characters are just so important to me and so important to stories, I thought it might be interesting to share with you guys how it is that I know that I have nailed a character, the actual steps that I go through, some checks that I do in order to be like, yep, this character is good. And I had to do a lot of thinking about this recently because the book that I'm working on currently, both of the main characters, it took me a really long time to get them. I definitely had to do more work in order to get them, and I went further into the story not knowing them than I really ever have before. I'm not exactly sure why that is. Part of it might have been that I had more of a plan for the plot going in, like I had ideas of what I wanted to do, and so it was less, me starting writing the characters, and then the plot just kind of happens. It was I'm writing toward a certain thing, and the characters did not necessarily fit into what I wanted to have happen. It means luckily for you, that I have looked more deeply into how do I develop a character, how do I know that the character is good. Yeah, there's a cat. How do I know that the character is good, and how do I know that the character is fully manifest in my head? Eventually he's going to leave. This is probably a piece of advice that you've heard before when you've learned creative writing in school, or even, just from random advice that you've gotten from other writers, is that you want your character to sound like your character. And again, kind of like when people are trying to teach you about author voice, it is something that they explain by showing you examples without explaining how you get to that stage. I am guilty of this as well, but they'll be like, make your character very unique. And you're like, well, this character is going to use very big words. Or this character is going to say, at the end of every sentence. Or this character is going to only speak in hyperbole. Or something like that. Well, that definitely is very unique sounding, but it isn't necessarily what they mean. The way that I know that I've gotten a character through this is I will be writing along. I am a discovery writer for the most part, and I will be writing along, and there will be dialogue, of course, because you're writing a story. And then I will go back earlier in the story, and I will change the dialogue because now I know that is not how they would say that thing. Because when I have that complete character in my head, when I'm writing them, like in the back of my head, I know what their motivations are. I know what their trauma is. I know what their goals are. I know how they feel about the person or people that they're talking to. This is the way that they would respond. Part of getting that dialogue right is writing them a lot. In normal dialogue where you're like, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm having a good day. Like, you're not really going to get a lot of voice into that, like the character's voice in that. As you write them more, the character will have those moments of emotion. They will have those moments of importance where they say things very specifically. They say things a certain way. They focus on certain things. And as you write them more and more, that solidifies itself. Like your brain does subconsciously says, this is that character or this is not that character. Basically, at a certain point of having written them a lot, I know that's not like super specific, but I mean, a lot of learning to write is just writing a lot. Then you will be able to say, this is what they would say when they're just greeting somebody, right? Like, they wouldn't say, hey, they'd be like, or whatever like that. It's not even necessarily just the dialogue that will change. I like writing a lot of first person or third person close. So it's not just what they say, but what they notice, how they describe what they notice, like in the world around them, and all that kind of stuff will actually start to change as well. Because again, once you've got those motivations, those goals, those, like what their history is, they're going to notice things that they would notice based on their history. If a character grew up in a swordsmithing family and there's a weapon around, they'll probably notice that weapon and like details about that weapon. If they were born like in an affluent family, they'll be able to pick out the differences between clothing that may look simple but is like rich, very expensively made, versus something that looks simple that is just, a simple thing. So the second thing in this list is the thing that I go to the most often when I don't have a character, when I don't understand who they are or any of this kind of stuff. I open up a new page in my document and I start asking them questions. Me, the God author, I am the author, and I am talking to the character. In general, I'll start off with, how are you feeling at this current point in the story? For my rule, like they always answer as truthfully as they can, or as truthfully as they think is the truth. Like if they think they're doing fine, they'll say that they're fine, but they won't ever like refuse to answer. I am the author, I am the God, like they're going to answer me. I'll ask them, how are you feeling? What are your goals or your motivations right now? Sometimes they don't know this. Obviously, whenever I'm talking about the character, it is still you. It's just you with a specific mindset. There's certain times when you know the answer and thus they know the answer. Then there's the situation in which where you get a little bit deeper and you know the answer, but you realize that they don't know the answer, right? From their experiences, from what's happened to them in the story, they would not know what their motivation necessarily is. And then there's times when your character will surprise you and you'll ask them a question and they will give you an answer that you didn't know. Those moments are just wonderful. Those moments are pure creation. That is when you know that you're close to, if not have already gotten that character. Your subconscious mind knows them so well that it's coming up with stuff that you did not consciously come up with. But like I said, you can do this when you don't know the character. And it's more of the writing them until basically that soul of that character manifests itself in your brain, in your subconscious. The third thing on my list is something that I haven't done a ton of, but with this most recent story and these characters, I basically had to do it. My original, my normal way of figuring out a character was not working. I was getting super far into the story without knowing what these characters were actually doing. I was kind of fumbling around. Basically what I did was, I said, okay, we're going to take these characters and we're going to put them in a different universe. So basically what I did was I wrote fan fiction of these characters. Now, you don't always have to go as far as a completely different world. You can take the characters and put them into situations that they're just not getting into in the book. This world is like an MMORPG, and the two characters are training to be mages within that world. They never go and do a quest that has them fight dragons, right? They never go and fight dragons or interact with dragons in any way. There are dragons in this world. I could have them just go off and do a non-canon quest where they fight dragons and see what happens. Sometimes I will throw the characters together and just make them fight. They would not fight this way in the actual story, but like I just throw them together and they just start yelling at each other, and like sometimes stuff comes out that way. Whether or not they're fighting on something that's like in the plot, they have wants and needs and motivations, right? And so if they fight about something, they're going to have opinions about that, or you're going to start developing those opinions. But going back to having them in different universes, this pushes that a little bit further. It's a situation that doesn't happen. It's a situation that could not happen. The first AU fanfic was my characters in meeting at a tavern. Like one of the characters worked at the tavern, the other character was hurt, and showed up at the tavern, and the first character helped them, and then they get to know each other, etc., right? It's a popular fan fiction trope. It's a thing. It feels weird calling it a fanfic when I'm the actual author of the characters, but that's technically what it is. I got to know the characters in a way that I didn't writing the actual story. They got to interact with each other a different way. They got to have completely different conversations. They had a completely different world. The both of them had similar but different backstories. I kept like the characters and the instances the same. Obviously the events of the story never happened. It's kind of like a thought exercise, right? We're doing more writing with the characters, and the more writing you do with the characters, the more you figure them out. Be aware that it is also possible to get distracted by these AU fan fictions, as I've done. I think I have like 5 or 6 of them now, and I'm really enjoying them. Luckily, I'm still working on my story, but you know, it's good for developing your characters, but remember about your original story. And the fourth thing is something that you've probably heard about, you might never have experienced it. And that is when you are writing your original story, like the actual story with the characters in it, and you know that you need to have something happen, something is supposed to happen in the plot, and the character won't do it. You may have heard authors complain about this before. You may have had it happen before and been annoyed by it. I am not annoyed by it. I am excited by it. It is my holy grail. Because basically what is happening is that you, the author, have a plan. You have planned out this story, you have created these characters, you have created this world, and you're saying this is what needs to happen next, and the character that is like completely manifest only in your mind is saying, no, I won't do that. That is the epitome of this character is fully manifest in your head. To me, that is so exciting. It is annoying because you were expecting the plot to do this certain thing, and now that is not happening, but I will tell you that while I hazard to never like make declarative statements about anything in writing. Different rules are there for different reasons, and you can break them and you can blah, blah, blah. I would say that if you were ever writing a story and you need a certain thing to happen and your character says no, they are right and you are wrong. Just basically, period. The manifest of that character in your head is saying this is not something that I would do. If you need that thing to happen, one of the things is you might just have to go in and change your plot, right? Like, you figure out why they wouldn't do that thing, and then what's the story going to do if they don't do that thing. If they have to do that thing, then you have to be able to change circumstances around that, because whatever is happening with those circumstances, the character is refusing to do it. Give them more pressure. Give them a harsher penalty if they don't do it. Now, for those of you who have never had this happen, I'm sorry, and hopefully one day you do have this happen. What does it mean when I say the character refuses to do it? Because you, of course, are the author, and you can just say, and then Bill walked down the street, right? Like, you can make them walk down the street. What generally happens is you're writing your story along, and it's flowing for the most part, right? You are getting from point A to point B. You are creating chapters, you're creating scenes, plot is happening. What happens when a character refuses to do the thing is you are writing them doing the thing and something isn't working. If the character doesn't come straight out and say no on the page, you're trying to have them do something and you were struggling. Like, the plot doesn't seem to move forward. The other characters don't seem to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's a certain flow when your story is working, and that flow stops or slows down. You're no longer writing the character the way that the character exists. It's still a little, this is not, I can say, X, Y, and Z, right? But for the most part, that is basically what happens, is there is resistance there. And that is the character saying no. And obviously, it's okay to be frustrated about that. It's okay to be like, oh my gosh, character, why are you doing this to me? And at the same time, I want you to remind yourself that this is awesome because you have characters that are actually alive. While you can obviously force them to do whatever it is that you want, just remember that if you do that, even if you make this thing happen anymore because you need it to happen, it's very possible that when you get to beta readers, they're going to be like, this doesn't make any sense. This character wouldn't do this. Forcing your way through it, like I said, it's like never the correct answer, right? You've got to change something, because even if you manage to force your way through it and you force that to happen and you ignore the resistance and you make it happen, your readers are going to be able to tell. And that's wonderful, because your readers can tell your character is an actual person in their minds. They have wants and needs and desires that you have portrayed properly to your reader, and they're not going to accept the character not doing stuff that is in line with that. So all the first three things that I talked about, writing lots of dialogue, putting your characters in different situations, and just straight up asking them questions like, you to them. These can be exercises in order to help you develop your characters. It is also a way to tell whether or not your character is becoming more solidified in your mind. Number 4 is probably not going to happen until they actually are a character of their own. They have to have enough of an opinion to say no before they can say no. Those first 3, any of those, if you need to develop a character, filling out those character information sheets, those are all well and good. I use those to help remember how tall my character is or what color eyes they have, or, stuff like that. But for the most part, they're worthless. They're not worthless. I'm not going to say they're worthless. I am going to say that they're more useful at the beginning of the character creation process, right? Because you can say, I want a character who is this tall and has these colored eyes and has this background and grew up in the church or whatever like that. Like, you do create all of that, and it can be handy to write that out in character information sheet. But I find as I write that character, I take the bits of it that I need, I throw away the bits that I don't, and I go back to the character sheets that I've created for, characters at the very beginning of the story, and I'm like, their eyes are still the same color. Their eyes are still the same color. They might even still be the same height. All well and good. Go ahead and make your character sheet, fill out your character sheet. They are fun also, because sometimes they make you think of questions that you didn't even think to ask. But the only way that you're actually going to develop the characters into like real characters that your readers love and understand is just writing them and asking them their motivations and listening when they tell you. And that's how you're going to get those characters that people are going to fall in love with and want to spend a lot of time with and read your books. And then hopefully they will trust that you will always write good characters, and they will buy all of your books and read all of your stories. And then you will be a very happy author. If you like this video, go ahead and like this video. If you want to see any of the other videos that I'm going to put out, go ahead and subscribe. And I will see you in those next videos. All right, bye-bye.